Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we're going to start off with lecture number 25, but before we head on to today's lecture, let's quickly recap what we did in the previous lecture. So we started off with IMC, which is Integrated Marketing Communication, right? So we talked about the different mixes that are there. We talked about the marketing mix. We talked about 4 functions of management and how it is different from the promotional mix or marketing communication mix, right? So marketing mix and marketing communication mix are 2 different ideas. So promotional mix is a blend of advertising, direct marketing, personal selling, sales promotion. So all these activities come together to communicate about a certain product. And we talked about how this promotional mix is not the sole determinant of what would be communicated about the product. It is the product itself that would say a lot about what it stands for, what sort of quality it has, what sort of features it has, and what value does the product give to the end customer. So this is one of the ways of communicating with the customer, and the other way is the product itself. Then we talked about different elements that fall under promotional mix. We talked about advertising. Now advertising is any paid non-personal presentation from an identified sponsor, right? So by non-personal we mean right, so we do not go directly, the company does not go directly to your potential customer or existing customer and try to convince them, but it is through indirect means. So there's a non-personal sales presentation that is made through advertising. There are different modes of advertising: broadcast, print, internet, outdoor. We talked about the power of media and how people schedule their lives according to television programs and news and all these things. So advertising was the first element. Then we talked about sales promotion. Now sales promotion is a short-term incentive that is given by the company. We talked about different types of sales promotion. We talked about discounts that you give, the coupons that you get with the products, the rebates that you get with the product. What is a rebate? We've talked about it. Rebate. A rebate is a potential refund that you get from the manufacturer, right? So that is a rebate. So rebate is one of a kind of sales promotion activity. Then we talked about displays, demonstrations. So these are all sales promotion activities. Then we talked about PR activities, public relationing activities. These are done to clarify your position on a certain agenda or a certain issue, or you might want to communicate a certain idea to the people. You might want to create goodwill into the market. So there could be various reasons why you would want to do PR activity. Now PR activity would essentially include your press releases, the sponsorships that you do, the special events that you conduct, the different web pages you have. So these are all public relationing activities. Then personal selling is where the company representative goes personally and makes a sales presentation. That's a personal selling element. And how do you do personal selling? You identify your target audience, you identify a contact within that target audience, and then you contact that person. You go make a sales presentation, you talk to them, you take their questions, and you try to convince them to buy the product. And once they're convinced, they might end up buying the product. Or if they're not convinced, you take their feedback, their contact details, and you pursue them further, and you pursue the sale further by calling them or maybe taking their feedback on and off. So that is personal selling. Then direct marketing involves direct connection with carefully targeted individual customer to obtain both an immediate response and cultivate a long-term relationship with the customer. Now direct marketing, again, you have a direct contact with the customer. You could send them emails, you could send them SMSs, you could have kiosks and people could go there, interact with the company professionals. So this is all direct marketing. Then we talked about the new communication landscape and how communication has been changing and how it has become a challenge for the marketers. So it has been changing for various different reasons. The first one is that the customer are better informed, right? The literacy rate is improving, more people are getting educated. That is resulting in more people being informed. Then you have internet sources, you have media that is informing, educating people. So there are various sources that are making consumer much more informed than they used to be, let's say 1960s or 70s. Then there's more communication because of rapid technology development. There's more communication, there's more people-to-people contact. You know, sitting in 1980s, people could only imagine that, you know, sitting here in Pakistan, you could, you know, talk to your relative through a video call in America, let's say. But it is now very much possible. So the communication has improved tremendously, and that has also resulted in a change in landscape. So when people become more connected, they exchange more ideas, right? And when they exchange more ideas, they become even more aware. So people sitting in Pakistan would very well know what is happening in America, what sort of products are available over there, and they might want those products within Pakistan. That might be an opportunity for many of the companies working here in Pakistan, right? So more communication is also changing the way you communicate. Then there's less mass marketing, since we have evolved from, you know, mass marketing to today's era where we're talking about not collective self but individual self, right? So by individual self, I mean you're regarding each customer as an individual, and you want to cater to that particular customer like an individual with individual needs, with individual identity, right? So we have entered the era of customization, of tailoring the products according to the needs of the customers. So this has resulted in marketers segmenting the market and, you know, tailoring the products according to the needs of the segments. Then changing communication technology, all the above has been possible through changing technology, through internet, through mobile phones, through all these various technologies. Now let's talk about the shifts that have been occurring. Let's get to today's lecture. That we would cover firstly the shifts that are taking place. Now, doom to gloom kiosk scenario, that's what author talks about. Now a kiosk scenario is a scenario where your traditional marketing models would fail, right? So TV, radio, all these would fail, and people would communicate through new digital, options, right? So maybe through internet, through social media. So what kiosk scenario says is that eventually your traditional media would fail, it would collapse, and it would give rise to a new way of communicating with people, that is through new digital technology. Now, many people believe that the television would become irrelevant, right? Now, talking about 90s and maybe early 2000s, people used to sit from 8 to 9 slot to watch television. Many of us did, right? We all agree to that?
Yes, ma'am.
But nowadays people don't, right? So you have your YouTube, you can watch the drama on your convenience, right? So let's say if you're out with your friends, you'll go home, maybe watch the drama, the 8 to 9 slot at maybe 12 at night, right? So the comfort level has increased. The way entertainment options have changed, right? So this has, decreased the importance of television, if I should put it that way, right? So the TV is not viewed the same way as it was viewed in, let's say, 1990s or 1980s. The power has, if not decreased, then has changed a bit. Now, many people view it as a drastic change that would take place in the very near future. Many would say that you need to, take both television and other digital medias on board and create a marketing communication mix, right? Why do they say that? Because they say that TV is an excellent medium. It would stay relevant, but you need to realize that TV is not only the game these days. Maybe in 1990s, 1970s, it would have had been the only game. But these days you have other medias available. Social media is available. You have, YouTube, other such channels that are an excellent mode of communication. So you need to have those on board as well. So alongside television, add these mediums to your communication, and you could have, a more holistic approach towards communicating with your target market. So the idea is that nowadays, TV is not only the game, but you have other medias that you need to have with you to communicate to your customers. Then you need to grip another marketing challenge that marketers nowadays face is bridging gap between traditional media and new age media. And that's what we just talked about, right? So your traditional media is your radio, your television, your newspaper. These are all your traditional medias. And your new media is social, which websites do we have? Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. So these are all your new digital media. So you need to bridge gap between the two very different mediums. That's the job of marketer. So these are different shifts that have been occurring in integrated marketing communication, and this is something that the marketer needs to understand so that he could communicate properly. So what?
Why there is a need for the gap between the traditional and the new?
Because the traditional is not completely obsolete, right? So you cannot throw it right at the back. It is still relevant, but it is not as relevant as it was in 1990s because you have other mediums as well. So if you want to communicate properly, right, so you need to have both on board, because one is emerging and one is not completely obsolete, right? So you merge both and you have a more, better way of communicating with people. The next one is integrated marketing communication, is the integration by the company of its communication channels to deliver clear, consistent, compelling message about the organization and its brands. So that is IMC, integrated marketing communication. So what it says is you need to integrate all the communication that is being made by the company. So whatever the website says, the advertisement should say the same. Whatever the newspaper advertisement says, the print, television ads should say the same. Whatever the company representative is saying, it should appear in your, on your website. So everything needs to be integrated together so that you could put a unified, the same message everywhere. That is IMC, bringing it out an integrated communication and a clear, consistent, compelling message.
मैम वो जो किसी ब्रांड में शॉपिंग करो तो आपको फ़ोन नंबर लेते हैं, उसके बाद मैसेज करते हैं कि ये नई कलेक्शन आई है, तो वो भी इसी में इंटीग्रेटेड मार्केटिंग है।
Integrated marketing communication, that is
मतलब वो इससे ऑफर्स आती हैं ये न्यू कलेक्शन या 50 up to
IMC talks about a clear, consistent message. Okay? What you're referring to is promotion, right? So that is a promotional element that they do. They send you SMSs, right? So that is a promotional way. IMC talks about that whatever is sent you through promotions, the promotion needs to be on the website. The promotion needs to be consistent with whatever is on the television. The promotion needs to be consistent with whatever is on the radio. So it talks about consistency of communication. Right? So communication process, so what we have on the screen right now, the communication process. So you have the sender who's sending out the message, right? Then you have encoding. You gather all the message elements together to try to form the message, right? So you gather what would be, written in the message, the script of the message, the jingles that you would add to the message, the offer that you would make to the message. So this would be encoding, as a result of which you formulate the message. Once the message has been formulated, it goes through the media and it goes to the customer. The customer starts decoding the message. So he would realize that this is the jingle of, let's say, Airtel or maybe McDonald's. So McDonald's, what's the jingle of McDonald's? Anybody? It's their phone number. Right? So the message is sent out, it is decoded, and then the receiver gets it. And once the receiver gets it, as a result of which he generates a response, and based on that response he gives a feedback, and the feedback goes back to the sender. And in between that, if there's, the message gets distorted anywhere, that is called noise, right? So noise distorts the message. So maybe the message wasn't formulated properly, the message wasn't sent properly, the message wasn't decoded properly, the feedback did not come in the way it should have had been delivered. So the noise process could, destroy your whole communication process at any point during the communication process. So this is your business communication process. Now, talking about steps in developing effective marketing communication. Now, these are various steps that are involved in designing an effective marketing communication. The first step is identify your target audience. Now, why would you want to identify your target audience? By target audience, I mean the people, maybe the organizations, the group of individuals that you're targeting. So it could be anybody. So you identify your target audience. Why would you want to identify your target audience? Because as a result of identifying your target audience, you will be able to tell that what needs to be said, how will it be said, when will it be said, where it will be said, and who will say it, right? So all these factors could be answered, all these questions could be answered once you know the target audience. So let's say if the target audience are children, the way you say it, where you would say it, and how you would say it would be completely different. If the target audience are mothers for the same product, let's say there's a cereal that you're trying to sell. If the target audience, if you want the children to, ask their mothers to buy the cereal for them, the way you would, design the ad would be completely different. If you want to convince the mother that the cereal is extremely healthy and they want to give it to their kids, the way you communicate would be entirely different, right? So you need to understand who do you want to target the ad to, so that you could, sort of answer all these questions that are appearing on the screen right now. So what will be said, how will be said, who would say it? So all these questions would be answered once you know your target audience. Now the second step is determining the communication objectives. Now marketers seek a purchase response that results from consumer decision-making process that includes stages of buyer readiness process. What's a buyer readiness process? That's a buyer readiness process. I'm sorry for the pixels of the picture. The buyer readiness process talks about different stages of the buyer. The first stage is awareness. The second stage is knowledge. The third stage is liking. Then you develop preference for a product. Then you have conviction for a product. You strongly believe that the product is extremely good. And if you strongly believe, you end up purchasing the product. Right? So this is a buyer readiness process. So marketers seek a purchase response that results from consumer decision making. So all your communication mix is designed so that the customer could buy your or purchase your product eventually. So you want to go to the last step of buyer readiness process through your communication process, right? But not all advertisements, not all communications are designed to hit the very last stage, that is purchase. Many of the advertisements are designed to make aware about a certain offering, about a certain product, right? For instance, when a new product comes in, you run teasers, right? So when, I believe it was Telenor, when Telenor came in, they used to run a 1.5 minute advertisement about the advertisement. It was Telenor or Warid? One of the organizations, right? They used to run a very expensive ad at that point, very lengthy, and it had a jingle, Jhumure Savanayo, and you know, there was no mention of the company's name. And it created a buzz in the market. The idea was to make people aware that the new company is coming into the market. Now, if you see, they're running such an expensive advertisement, but they do not want people as of now to purchase the product. They just want people to become aware of the product. So not all the times you're trying to communicate to, you know, make people purchase the product. Sometimes you want to, you know, just make people aware, give knowledge to people. So you need to understand where your target audience is in this process, right? So in buyer readiness process, where is your target audience, right? So once you're, you know, done with, you know, setting up your communication objectives, then you move on to designing a message. Now, when you design a message, the different elements to a message that you need to, you know, take into account. What sort of structure should it have? What sort of appeal you want to make? And most importantly, how the, you know, overall the communication should flow within a message. So to talk about that, the model that we consider is AIDA. That is AIDA. So AIDA is attention, interest, desire, and action. So that's what you want in your message. The message should get the attention of the people, right? It should develop interest of the people, it should create desire amongst people, and then it should, you know, convince the people to take an action for the message that is being currently delivered. So that is the, you know, quality of a good message. Questions so far? Have a look at it, what we've done, and we'll take questions. Otherwise, move on to message content. Questions? No? Let's move ahead. Now, when you're designing the message, you need to understand what should be the content of the message. So message content is the appeal or theme that would produce the desired response. So what sort of appeal do you want to make within an advertisement? There are different types of appeal. The first one is a rational appeal. So a rational appeal, you know, relates to the audience self-interest, right? So you have a rational way, a logical way of, you know, telling people that the product is good for them, right? So that is rational appeal. So if you do not vaccinate your kids against, you know, polio, they would get eventually polio, and, you know, their life would be ruined. That's a rational appeal that they're trying to, you know, give to the people. Another good example could be the insurance companies, right? The insurance companies or, you know, the banks would tell you that, you know, you keep this much amount of money and you'll get this much interest, you know. It's a more rational appeal, more logical appeal, right? So they could use rational appeals to convince the people into buying their product. Another way is emotional appeal. Now, emotional appeal, emotion could include humor, right? It could include, you know, convincing people through the fact that if they do not use the product, what could happen to them, you know, emotionally, right? So if you use the product, you know, a certain product, everybody might want to be friends with you. You know, that is an emotional appeal, right? You know, many insurance companies use, right? So this is an emotional appeal that they want to make. humor is an excellent way of making an emotional appeal. Ufone has been a pioneer in Pakistan when it comes to humorous ads, right? So they designed a lot of humorous ads trying to sell their products. So again, this is an emotional appeal. So you need to understand that whenever you're using humor in your advertisement, it should not offend anybody, and it should not sort of demean the competitors and the audiences. So it needs to be dealt very properly. Then you have moral appeals, social appeals. This is another type of appeal that you would want to include, that you might want to add in designing your message. So a moral appeal is directed at the audience sense of what is right and proper. So these days we now see an advertisement coming from Ministry of Information telling people to give zakat to only needy people, and investigate before you give zakat. So that is a moral appeal. That is a social appeal that is being made to the people. Then you have other such advertisements that come, don't use cigarettes, they're harmful for you. Abide by the law, say no to corruption. So you see these advertisements very often. So these are all moral appeals. Right. So then we're going to talk about choosing media. So you could choose a media that is personal presentation, that talks about personally presenting or personally communication. So personal communication involves two or more people communicating directly with each other, right? So this is personal communication. So you have face-to-face communication, you have personal selling, you could talk through phone, you could communicate one-on-one through email, internet chat. So this is all personal communication, which is extremely helpful. Now in personal communication, you could create buzz marketing. What is buzz marketing? Buzz marketing involves cultivating opinion leaders and getting them to spread information about your products and services to others in their communities, right? So you create a buzz, you cultivate opinion leaders and have them spread the news amongst everybody, right? So who is an opinion leader? Very good. So an opinion leader is somebody who influences the purchase and the thought process of people. So maybe a person who is very trendy in the class, you might want to take his advice if you're buying a fashion item for yourself. So anybody who you look up to, who you go for advice and he influences your decisions, he might be the opinion leader. So opinion leaders sort of create a buzz in the market, and as a result of which people might purchase the product. So why do opinion leaders influence? They might have different powers. They might be expert at their field. They might have tried the product. They could have a lot of social influence. So all these factors lead to opinion leaders influencing you. Celebrity endorsements. They could be one form of opinion leaders. So you have opinion leaders. Yes, yes, that could be it. That could be it. Right. So you have many types of opinion leaders. Opinion leaders that are, from within your community, and then opinion leaders who are not from within your community, but yet they're able to influence you. So these are also your opinion leaders. So then you have non-personal communication. Non-personal communication is media that carry messages without personal contact or feedback, including major media atmospheres, events. So we talked about non-personal presentations previously when we were talking about advertising. That the company does not go directly, there's no face-to-face communication as such, there's no one-to-one communication as such in non-personal communication channels. No, the major non-personal communication channels are, broadcast, online media, print. These are all major, channels. Now, atmospheres are design environments that create or reinforce bias, leanings towards, buying a product. So you create an atmosphere whereby you would want and go buy the product. So you have events, press conferences, grand openings, public tours. These are all events that are created to communicate a certain idea to the people. Once you're done with that, then you collect feedback. So how do you collect feedback? You would ask for recall, right? So recall and recognition are an excellent way of telling if the communication was successful enough or not, right? So what's the difference between recall and recognition? What's the difference between recall and recognition? Mm-hmm. Now, recall recognition is you're able to recognize something, right? So if I tell you, if I run an advertisement, I ask you, have you seen the ad? And if you say yes, that means you've recognized the ad. Can you recall the ad? That means there's no external stimuli that would be given to you, and as a result of which you'll be able to tell if you remember. So if I tell you, have you seen the new Pepsi ad? Can you tell me what is in it? That calls for more deeper processing, and that would be recall, right? So recognition is more superficial and recall is more detailed, right? So when is recall important? When recall is or recognition important? Recognition is important when you have external clues available, right? So you go to your Metro cash and carry, you go to Punjab cash and carry, you have shelves with products stocked on them, and you can go and recognize the product and get the product. In that type of situations, the recognition of the product would be that is all what you would want. Where the products are stacked at the back and you have to ask for the product, that means you do not have external cues available to you. At that point in time, what would be important? Recall would be important, right? Can you recall the product without any external cue or not? That's the difference between recognition and recall. So let's quickly do this. How do you set the total promotional budget for your communication? Now, the different ways through which you could set the total communication budget for your product or company. The first method could be affordable budget method. Now, in affordable budget method, whatever you can afford, you spend it on communicating with the people. You spend it on advertisements. You spend it on promotions. So this is all affordable budget method. Now it ignores the effects of promotion on sales. Since whatever you can afford, you spend it. You do not take into account sales as such. The second way is percentage of sales method. Now in percentage of sales method, what you do is you take a certain percentage of your total sales and you allocate it to your communication. So let's say of your overall sales, you allocate 4% to promotions. That is the second way of setting up your promotional budget. The third way is competitive parity method. Now in competitive parity method, what you do is you take into account what the competitor is doing, and then you use that particular information into designing your own budget. So what it does is you're able to set the budget according to the industry standards, and secondly, you avoid promotional wars. So the case wouldn't be that one competitor is spending a lot of money and the other one is not spending at all. So you would be consistent with whatever is happening in the industry, right? So that would be competitive parity method. And the last one is objective and task method. Now, what happens in objective and task method is you set the objective of your communication. What is the objective of the communication? Resultantly, how that objective could be met, you list down the tasks. Based on those tasks, you realize what cost would be incurred on each task's accomplishment, right? And resultantly, you get your end budget that you need to spend on your promotion. So these are different methods of promotions, right? Now we'll keep it here. We'll continue in the next class for the rest of the chapter.